Hey guys, it's me, Vinny back at it again with another live stream of the NFL week. Here, my close friend, Bill Carroll, of course, 11 Bravo 138 on Twitter, draft expert extraordinaire, blogger of Zennie62 Media as well. And this has been a very, very interesting week of football, I'd say. How about you?
Fascinating. And we saw some backups, and of course now the Vikings will get to see how their backups look. But one of the least discussed things, but most important things when it becomes important, is your backup quarterback position.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm still a little surprised and disappointed that Philip Walker Jr., all XFL quarterback, was available to so many teams once he got cut. I was surprised more teams didn't circle in and snap him up. And kudos to the Browns for being smart enough to grab him. He's one of the better backups in the league. And
Definitely.
While he wasn't quite able to pull their fat out of the fire again, if he had, he would have been the first quarterback in NFL history for his first 3 starts to all be fourth quarter comebacks.
No, that's not true. He started a game against he started some games to the Panthers too. So that wouldn't
okay, first 2 starts for a new team. Sorry, for a new team. Okay. So first, I didn't mean of his career. I meant his first 2 starts with a new team to be all fourth quarter. I didn't make that part clear. But he would have been the first, had he led a fourth quarter comeback in this game, to have his first 3 starts with a new team be all be fourth quarter comeback, because his previous 2 with the Browns had been.
Yeah, mom was just saying some stuff, but yeah, the Seahawks are now leaders of the NFC West, as you predicted before the season. The Niners have now lost 3 in a row after starting 5-0. Yep. Purdy looks like there's some pressure on him. You could see how the injuries have been catching up to this team a bit.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just been tough for them. Like
this, you also have to wonder if he's 100%. I mean, he was in the concussion protocol until approximately 27 hours ago.
I don't think he's ready yet. I still think he's hurt personally.
Yeah, I have questions about that as well. Yeah. But let's give some credit to the defense. That was a extremely well prepared defense. They executed their plan extremely well. They pressured Purdy smartly, right? He's not freakishly athletic. He's not going to be compared. He's not Kyler Murray. He's not Anthony Richardson. He's not Lamar Jackson. He's closer as a scrambler to a guy like Baker Mayfield, but he's an effective scrambler. He had a couple of scramble plays, but they, for the most part, other than those few scramble plays, they kept him in the pocket. They had sort of a contained rush plan. And other than George Kittle really getting off, they did a good job of shutting down most of the receivers. And most importantly, that devastating running game, while they certainly did some business, they didn't take over the game. If you can keep the 49ers from being able to run at will anytime they want to, on any down, any distance, to pick up, chunk yards, and you end up not having a bunch of deep shots, big shot passing plays. Like I said, Kittle gashed him a couple of times. Ayuk only had really one sort of notable big play. They were able to keep most things in front of them. And like I said, the running game, while effective, wasn't dominant.
Mm-hmm. Right. The Bengals are now back to their usual selves after being 1-3. They're now 4-3, and just in a very tough AFC North right here. You have the Ravens who are leading the way in the division, and you have the Steelers, Browns, and Bengals all clumped together at 4-3.
Yeah.
It's just really, really tough. Really, really tough division. I would not be shocked if you have 3 teams. I honestly think there's going to be 3 teams from this division making the playoffs from the looks of it.
I think that everyone's going to be between 12 and 8 wins. And I think that's what I said even preseason. 12 to 8 wins. Everybody's going to be between 12 and 8 wins. I think that the Ravens are the team that's best set up to be the 12-win team. Obviously, a lot can happen, but I don't see any of the teams catching the Ravens. I think eventually the Bengals get close. And then the fight is between my Steelers and the Browns for that last spot. And obviously, we'll see what happens with Pickens going with Pickett, Kenny Pickett going forward. Pickens is balling out.
He is. He has been. Their connection is really good.
But we saw Pickett make a few mistakes, and of course, end up injured. We'll see if it's serious or not. I haven't seen an update since he left the game. Mitchell Trubisky is one of the a fairly well paid backup, but I just don't think we're getting our money's worth there. When I look at Gardner Minshew, when I look at once again Philip Walker Jr., even Josh Dobbs, who are all making, I believe, well, maybe Minshew's being paid about this. I have to see. Maybe Minshew's being paid as much or more, but the other two I know are being paid significantly less than Trubisky. It makes me wonder sort of what it was. I don't know if it's because he was a guy who was drafted high originally, and people just sort of still have that sort of aura of an early first round draft.
I would say it's probably that, and also because he was the leader of 2 Bears teams that went to the playoffs.
Right.
Also because he won a Pro Bowl that should have gone to Matt Ryan. because of a few factors. That's probably why. But Trubisky's not that good. I think everyone knows that even as a backup, he's not that good. There was a few games last year in which Trubisky played below what he should have, and if they won those games, we probably would have looked at a Steelers team that would have been in the playoffs.
Right.
Forget the Dolphins; they would have been there instead.
Right. So I sort of call for this every year. I hope that they spend some time and energy on either signing a young veteran who still has some upside, or drafting, or maybe both, because that quarterback room is not one that I like a great deal. I was not a huge fan of Mason Rudolph, either as a prospect or as an NFL player. I never understood the hype that surrounded Trubisky when he was at North Carolina. I just feel like they're shackled to some extent to any time their starter going down to have to bite and scratch, and the defense have to score a couple times if they want to win a game against a team that's even mediocre. And of course they're done against good teams. So I hope they address the backup position in the offseason.
I know this sounds like somewhat of a tasteless question to some people, but if Dwayne Haskins was still here, how do you think he would have been?
Well, that's a fascinating question, and once again, rest in power.
Very sad situation.
Yes, to the Simba himself, as he, I think he nicknamed himself that, or somebody nicknamed him Simba.
He was a baller in college. He really was
great in high school. I remember how people were predicting that Tate Martell was going to take his job from him, and I told everybody he would listen. That never in a million years. That's another one of those sort of, I never understood the hype kind of players. Even when they would be blowing teams out and they would put in their backup, I would say, I think this skinny kid they put in after Martell leaves the game in the third quarter is better. And of course, Dominique, Dorian Thompson Robinson has at least hung around the league, which is something Martell couldn't even do. But back to what we're talking about. I think when we look at all these games, the things that came through for me, one is taking care of the ball, right? It's one of those things that coaches say all the time. But they say, what's the stat that's the greatest indicator? I mean, other than just points, but other greatest indicator for who's more likely to win and most likely to lose is turnovers. We saw Patrick Mahomes II get injured, try to play through it, never quite looked like himself. Of course, people are going to bring up the fact that Taylor Swift was not in the audience. But more to the point, the defense, which actually played very, very well, was let down by the offense. We rarely say that about the Chiefs.
Usually the other way around.
Sometimes
the Chiefs' defense has been pretty good this year for the most part.
As I said, I thought their defense would be. I said the Falcons and the Chiefs were the two defenses I sort of spotlighted as ones I thought would be visibly improved from one year to the next, and I've been at least somewhat right. Though the Falcons are sort of on and off as a defense, but the Chiefs looked very good on defense. And if their offense had been even 80% of what you normally expect from a Chiefs offense, they win that game by 4 points at least. So they should lean a little harder on the running game, especially if indeed Mahomes is nicked. They were running the ball effectively, but they don't stick with it. And that's just a thing that has always bothered me. That's been the one sort of criticism I've had of Andy Reid much of his coaching career. And obviously at times they haven't had a great running game. But even then, if you stick with it a little longer, once again, just takes hits off your quarterback. And I know they're not a team that thinks about shortening the game, but especially in this situation. I mean, the other team was trying to shorten the game. And of course, it worked. They were able to run the ball effectively enough, get a bunch of turnovers. They kept the ball, I think, something like all but 3 minutes and change of the fourth quarter. They had the ball an inordinate amount of time in the fourth quarter, thanks in part to obviously the muffed punt. But once again, reminder that all three phases matter, people. A lot of times people forget about special teams. Super important, especially in a situation like this. You saw that they were, every time they mounted a comeback, they had every time they mounted a comeback, there'd be a mistake made either by the offense, like a turnover. They had, obviously the fumbles and then the interceptions, or in that case, they had a chance right before that to punch in a score that would have, put them back in a chance to win the game. They bog down and then, make a mistake that pushes them back. They end up punting. I mean, not punting. Sorry, they end up shutting down. They get up straight. The defense rises up after that stunted drive. The defense gets them the ball back.
Bill, Zenny.
Yeah, Zenny's having problems of some sort.
I can't unmute. There's no music. He's saying that there's music on his on.
Right. Well, you have a tab open with music on it somewhere, Zenny. I mean, I'm pretty sure that's what go through all your tabs and mute all of them but StreamYard. And I think that'll probably take care of it.
So you were saying, Bill?
So, like I said, the offense was uncharacteristically bad. And I would have hoped that I think Matt Nagy is officially the play caller. But here, clearly, it's collaborative. Clearly, he and Reed work together. Reed is an old offensive lineman and still likes to run the football, but obviously get away from it because they've got number 15. This would have been exactly the kind of game to lean in your running game and force Denver to address stopping your run. And then now that'll open things up for you to start doing some business in the passing game. But they got away from it, and I'm not sure why.
Now, you were talking about injuries. Mahomes has dealing with injury. Purdy, Pickett, Stafford, and then Cousins.
And Cousins is the one.
And Taylor too. Tyrod Taylor also.
Right, Tyrod. Right. And then one we know is going to be season ending. Obviously, is
Cousins.
It's Cousins.
It's a shame because he felt indestructible for most of his career. Like this is the first ever injury that he's dealing with.
Serious, yeah. He's had like a sore shoulder, sore ribs, dislocated a finger, but I mean stuff that you can play through. This is not something you can play through.
No, and what's even worse is that he's a free agent after this year. So it becomes a very tricky situation, not only for him but for the Vikings as a whole, because you're currently the 7th seed right now. You're not going to be the same team, especially on offense, without him. He is your backbone of your offense. What's your game plan for you, and what's the game plan for the Vikings?
Well, the Trey Lance move looks smarter than ever now. Now, we don't know what they have. No one knows what they have in Trey Lance, but they might be about to find out. I guess he's officially listed as a third stringer, but obviously he moves up to at least the second stringer at this point. But it's going to be an interesting decision to be made because they traded for Trey Lance because
the Cowboys traded for Trey Lance, not the Vikings.
I'm sorry, that's right. It was the Vikings were the ones that I kept hearing going to trade for him. Well, guess what, Cowboys?
Brett Rippon's the backup for the Vikings.
I know he is. And he's not awful, but it might be time to give a call to the Cowboys and see what they want for Trey Lance. They might be able to flip him for a slightly higher pick name they got him for, right? I mean, that would be very smart of them. And clearly they need another quarterback anyway, right? You can't just go out to war with one quarterback, especially when he's Brett Rippon. So they are going to have to get another quarterback from somewhere. The other person who they might get a call to is a guy who's been on the team before, is Kyle Slaughter, who I've always been a fan of. Liked him in college. I've liked him in the AAF, and I liked him in the XFL. Or was the USFL, wherever he was playing most recently. Might give him a call. He's at least somewhat familiar with the system. He is in the area. I think he still lives in the area. And you could do worse. Obviously,
Yep.
Trey Lance would be a better option for you. But he played well for the Birmingham Stallions. I liked him a lot. He was really at Southern Miss. I really liked him in Northern Colorado. He's played for the Broncos in the past as well.
Hey guys, me, Vinny.
He's another player that I think should be in consideration.
Well, you got to also bring up Sean Mannion from your practice squad also. Like that you got to do that also.
Yeah. Right. But that still wouldn't stop me from trying to upgrade. Is what I'm
obviously. I mean, Sean Mannion, he's Sean Mannion. Come on, but what about so that's Cousins. Right. But what would you do with him after the season? Because he's a free agent after this year, and it might be his last ever play with the Vikings. Right. Would you throw him, give him another 1-year deal? Like, what would you do if you're the Vikings?
I mean, unless he's going to give a massive discount, no. I believe the Vikings were drafting another quarterback in this upcoming draft anyway. Even if they had brought him back, I believe they were going to draft a quarterback to develop, because Kirk Cousins isn't a long-term solution. He's not a long-term solution. And I think we've seen the best version of him, right? I mean, he's unlikely to get better at this point in his career. So you don't pay players for what they've done, or at least smart organizations don't. You pay them for what they're going to do. Mm-hmm. If you pay players for what they've done, you end up looking like those early 2000s Washington teams where they had all these guys that were really great 4 or 5 years before, right?
Like Deion Sanders and Adam
Archuleta,
Albert Haynes was the most famous example.
Antoine Randall L. So that's not how you want to build your team. Jeff George, that's not how you want to build a team.
Danny Werfel too. I think they also
right. Well, Werfel was not even a guy you were paying based on what he'd done in the past. I don't know. That was, you're paying him because he played for you in college.
Yeah, that's true. Just that.
But here's the point. There's no logical reason to me to bring back Cousins, because you're getting a player who's coming off a serious injury, a year older, and unless he's going to play on a massive discount. That's the only way I would at least consider it. But I'm drafting a quarterback, right? I mean, that. Even if he comes back, I'm drafting a quarterback. But either way, the Vikings should be drafting a quarterback, no matter what.
Well, Zennie, always great to see you here.
Thank you for starting, by the way. I much appreciated. That was the idea.
Yes. Anytime.
Yes.
But I want to ask you this. You've seen Kirk Cousins go down, season-ending injury, tearing his Achilles. He's a free agent after this season. If you're the Vikings, what would you do? Would you extend him, give him another contract, or would you let him walk in free agency now that he's done?
No, I extend him. I mean, he knows the system. I would evaluate.
Well, you wouldn't extend him. You give him a new contract.
It's the same thing. I mean, extending him, it means you're keeping him on the team. So you are extending his career with you. So at any rate, I'd extend him, and I would evaluate how we could make it less likely that he gets injured in that way or anyway for the rest of the campaign if we're going to invest in him. But letting him walk or anybody walk, I personally think is unintelligent. And the reason is that you have to think in terms of what is out, not just what's out there available, but how well, and I think Bill may have alluded to this, but how well they know your system, right, Bill? And and the ability to plug and play that person, likability in the locker room, a lot of intangibles like that go into it, to where I would say, personally, if I were the general manager, I would rather take my chances, as so many people have done with, well, look, suppose the Bengals had taken that attitude with Joe Burrow, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, well, he's injured, he won't come back, yada, yada, yada. But they didn't play
a comparable situation. Those guys are 11 years apart in age. That's not a comparable situation.
No, I disagree, because the intangible there is you don't know what their health regimens are away from the team, off season, or nutrition or anything else. That 11-year gap can be closed very quickly. So that's an asterisk out there. It's an unknown. It's a question mark.
But no matter what,
I'm not done. I'm not done. Okay.
Okay.
Because I'm saying that is an outlier that, from a statistical perspective, is basically superfluous. I have a quarterback who started for me, who performed well, and who was injured, and could very well recover quite effectively. And we've had a number of examples like that through the history of the National Football League, to a point where an argument regarding age difference is, again, superfluous.
It's not when it's coming off of an Achilles, it's not superfluous. We rarely have seen guys in their 30s, and in this case, mid 30s, come back and be the same guy, or even very close in most cases. Obviously, we're going to see what happens to Aaron Rodgers, who, of course, was absolutely great, in his years prior to the injury. But, whether it's, Cam Newton or name whoever you want to name, very few of those guys have been the same guy coming back, especially later in their careers. Often,
I would argue, but I would argue this. Okay, those are different circumstances. You mentioned Cam Newton for some particular reason, but Cam Newton wasn't released by the Patriots because of any physical area. It was behavioral from their perspective. So when you start to drill down again, age difference, I will repeat, is superfluous. Not only that, the ways, and I'm loving to argue about this one, although I don't want to argue about it the entire show, but I'll just make this point. Medical advances are so tremendously forward that every single day I get comfort. Like, hey, I'm going to get a hip replacement. 2 years ago, I thought, forget, I'm not going to the right because I don't trust them. But you know what? I decided I trust them. So my point, why? Medical advances. And so again, I powerfully disagree with that. If I have someone that knows the offense, I have a schematic issue I haven't solved, an intellectual problem that needs to be solved. I said that I, as GM, how I would handle it, obviously not somebody else, I would say keep him, form a plan for him to come back, and I'll take that risk. You're saying about that, I'll take that risk over the gigantic unknowns of bringing in a new player. I am not a shiny object person all the time, but my point is, in this instance, when you have somebody that, well, there's no reason other than the injury to consider parting ways from him. You know what? I'll take that. I'll bet.
Well, and the expense. I mean, if he's still going to cost me what he's been costing me, or I guess conceivably more, it hamstrings you in some ways in how you construct your team. And unless you believe your team, and maybe they do, maybe they believe their team is very, very close to winning a Super Bowl. I don't look at the Vikings as a team that's very, very close to winning a Super Bowl.
I do.
I look at them as a team that is in the fight to make a playoff, and I don't see them getting that much better unless something very unforeseen happens.
I see the Vikings as 11 play points away on a game per game basis from being a Super Bowl team. There you go. 11.
My stance now.
That's a lot. Though.
This is my personal.
But Bill, it's overcomical. It's overcomical.
This is my personal perspective.
I love that. It's overcomable. I'm sorry, Vinny. Go ahead.
No. My perspective on it is somewhere in the middle. You see, you have a team like the Minnesota Vikings, who at the moment are the 7th seed in the NFC. Now, they're more than likely not going to make the playoffs because of his absence. Now, they could still maybe with break ripping, but it's unlikely. But let's say, but either way, the Vikings are not going to be in a position to get a very high-end quarterback. But at the same time, you know that Cousins coming off of a serious injury. He has been there for your team for a long time. So I would say if you're going to keep Cousins around, you would have to keep him at a discount for maybe a 1-year deal, perhaps, if you're going to keep him. But if you don't keep him, you're going to have to try to get someone else's retread. Like, let's say the Cardinals draft high and Kyler Murray is on the trade block. You can maybe deal for him, but how much you want to give up for him as well?
I'm just not into this dealing for quarterbacks. I think it's unintelligent.
They have to give up a lot of picks.
We've been so infected by just ignorant broadcasting. I apologize if I'm not calling you ignorant or anything.
No, don't worry.
I'm talking about this habits, that we have where we repeat what people say on television, and we have folks who are skilled in just saying gobbledygook on the air, and the gobbledygook winds up in a bar discussion by a common fan.
Yeah.
The simple fact of the matter is that you have analytics, which was used by the Bengals to beat the blankety blank out of the Niners.
Yeah, that's true.
Yep.
Okay. And we have it to a point where you can actually, let's take the Vikings. Suppose the Vikings and defensive coordinator Brian Flores figure out a way to ball out. And so because of defense, the Vikings wind up in the playoffs, which could happen. Not the first time in NFL history by far.
Sure.
Okay. So they actually are creating a bed by which to sleep in, waiting for the return of their vaunted starter quarterback. All right.
Okay. Let me give you another scenario. Let's say they ball out and Jaron Hall is playing like a madman and looks terrific.
Yeah.
Okay. And he's playing like someone that might be your quarterback going forward. Okay. Now, do you still want to spend?
Yep.
Do you still want to play a lot of money for a 36-year-old, because that's what it'll be by that time, coming off of a serious injury?
Yeah. Hey, trade block. The other guy I'll use for trade. I'll use for picks. I'll build my team around Cousins, and I'll take that bet. I mean, everything's a bet anyway, right? I'll take that bet.
Zenny does have a good point.
I'm sorry, Vinny, but after this, I'd love to talk about Will Levis, but go ahead.
Yeah. Also, you mentioned Cousins. Like Cousins, you are correct. He was having an amazing season up to this point. And also in his final game, potentially of his Vikings career, he had the best QBR so far in the NFL, 91.9 against the Packers. And it is a real shame that this is going to be his last season, because Cousins is a quarterback I really, really do like. He is someone who I think, forget being a good quarterback, I think he's a really, really good person. And you always hate seeing stuff like that happen to someone that you know is truly genuine. That being said, I don't know. It's really tough. I think just because it's so raw and fresh, it's really hard for me to compartmentalize it.
Okay.
But
one last scenario to throw at Zenny. What if they trade for Jameis Winston?
Yeah.
So do you still want to spend a lot of money on a 36-year-old coming off of an Achilles if you have Jameis Winston now?
No.
Oh, okay.
No,
okay. Well, that's all I wanted to know.
No, I have nothing if not consistent. Okay, I think Jameis is a quarterback. All right. If Jameis wants to make that move, if the Vikings want to make that move, right?
Winston's also 29 years old.
Jameis doesn't have a no trade clause. He has no voice. He has nothing to say about it. But now Cousins has a no trade clause, but his contract's about to expire.
So if that's the case, though, Bill, riddle me this: why is it that the Saints won't let him out of jail?
I mean, they'll let him out of jail if the right team comes knocking. I mean, every player, well, very few players are not available for the right deal, right? I mean, even players you think aren't available, if you blow somebody's mind with a deal, can become available. So if the right team had the right offer, yeah, I think Jameis could be moved. And of course, they better do it quickly. I think there's 2 days and a few hours, I think, until the trade deadline.
Well, they're going to trade him in the middle of the year. They're going to be sorry. That's just me. I just think
it's fine. Don't worry. But when it comes to the Vikings, the reason why Cousins didn't get traded was because of his no trade clause. The Saints, I can also understand if they were to keep and hold on to someone like a Winston, because Derek Carr, he's getting older. They might need a backup just in case. But again, if the Vikings feel, hey, we have a chance to make a run for the playoffs, he's got to look at Winston's deal. Jameis Winston contract. Looking at Jameis's contract right now, pulling it up. It's only like a 1-year deal.
Yeah, it's 1 year for $8.2 million. I can tell you that when I'm looking.
Yeah.
So you're gonna need like maybe a late day 2 pick, or maybe a day 3 pick to get Jameis into the fold. And once that happens, he probably wouldn't be your starter in your first week there, because he has to learn the playbook unless he already knows it. And if they get him, you can just a plug and play option, and we'll see what happens. But let's talk. That's enough with the Vikings and Cousins. Got to hand it to Mr. Will Levis. 4 touchdown passes, first NFL game. Only one of 2 quarterbacks to say that. Frank Tarkenton and former Raider and the current Eagle, Marcus Mariota, who did it also for the Titans. And not only did Will Levis throw for 4 touchdowns, he wore it wearing those beautiful, beautiful Columbia blues in those
Houston Oilers. Houston Oilers. Houston Oilers.
Bill, I could tell that you loved them so much you were sweating tears from your eyes.
Well, here's the thing that jumped out at me. You could see a team unprepared for what came at them. They were very much loaded up, thinking there's going to be a run-dominant team. They're going to come at us. And still, despite the fact they were really concerned about the run, Derrick Henry had 101 yards rushing. But they were very unprepared for them to throw the ball, and particularly to DeAndre Hopkins, who had been wildly underutilized most of the season. And then suddenly, he's taking over a game again for the first time in years. We also saw Julio Jones score. What year is this? 2018? But it was exciting to see them open it up. Very often when you give a rookie quarterback his first start, it's usually a very conservative game plan. And Vrabel is obviously a defensive-minded coach that's built his team to run the football. So it was a delightful surprise. I mean, not for the other team, but for everyone else, for anyone who was just sort of a fan of football in general, and obviously for fans of the Tennessee Titans in particular, to see how conservative they were not in the game plan they put together. And it clearly was a surprise to the defense.
He was incredible.
Yeah, they were like, yeah, wow. But you know what? I want to share this with you. This is from this year's NFL Draft live stream. I don't know if you all witnessed it. This was day 2. And my buddy AP Stedham chimed in unexpectedly on my live mic. Was really salty because I was critical of Will Levis because, by that point, Will was developing the reputation of being kind of a hot dog on a showboat, and he hadn't gotten there yet. And so I was downgrading him on that basis, although I had previously, and I think I talked to you about this, Bill, had said, and I went to a mock draft and I took Will Levis to the Raiders, if you remember that.
I do remember.
Yeah, we did. I remember that pretty vividly, actually.
Yeah. But I was starting to sour on his attitude, and I thought, gee, that would be a locker room cancer. Anyway, I want to take you all back because I think this is a microcosm of kind of the kind of divisions there were about Levis. Here we go, right here. I don't know if you can see that or not. Yeah, you can. Okay.
Well, it has nothing to do with him having mayonnaise in his coffee, is it?
It could. I mean, hey, I'm an honest guy. I'll let you know what I think about
Yeah.
Here we go, folks. All right. This is the segment, including the 2-hour, 15-minute, and 57-second area. All right. Kansas City. So now the Saints are on the clock. New home of Derek Carr, current home of Jameis Winston, my favorite quarterback. Hey, Mr. Winston, how you doing? Talking about his father now. So, let's see. If you're wondering, there will be separate videos on these picks. Like, I got all fired up for Levis already. AP, you were asking me, you said you wanted me to make a stream or something, or do a like.
No, I was going to ask you. You heard Will say he didn't want to be interviewed?
Say again, please?
You heard Will say he didn't want to be interviewed?
I didn't hear. What I heard him say in an interview I found in search was that, yeah, he didn't want to meet the media if he wasn't anything greater than the 10th pick. Anything less, I can not now, but I'll find it. Later.
You were saying about humble pie. I didn't hear any humble pie from the cast last night.
From the who?
Those players last night. Anthony Richardson saying it's as good as him. Even Lamar Jackson played 15 games before. Telling me to shoot those guys. I didn't hear any humble pie from him.
I don't know what he's saying. Do you know what he's saying, folks? They don't know what you're saying.
I'm saying in plain English.
Why don't you come on in? No.
What I'm telling you is, when
let me put the camera because we're on live.
When Anthony Richardson spoke to the media last night, didn't he not say he was as good as Cam Newton and Lamar Jackson?
No, he didn't. He
That's what
did.
he said.
I thought he did.
That's what
I thought he said he was going to make his own legend. Yeah, that's what he said. Didn't he say that? He said he's going to make. He said both. Didn't he?
Zenny, I'm going to ask you one more time.
It's a test of six. This is a test of a couple of old guys.
Question. Answer yes or no.
Okay.
Did you hear him say?
No, hear who?
Did you hear Anthony Richardson say? I'm as good as Cam Newton and Lamar Jackson.
I heard him. I didn't hear him say those exact words. No.
Okay.
All right, but I don't know what's the point though.
Yeah.
I don't know. This is a mystery, folks.
You were talking about humble pie. I mean, those are not humble words.
Okay, I was talking about Will Levis.
Right, that's what I'm saying. So did you
Okay.
say that last night? There's no humble pie from Anthony Richardson?
But I wasn't talking about Anthony Richardson.
I know.
I'm
I know you were.
confused.
I'm asking you. Why didn't you say that last night?
What are you really driving at?
I don't know. Why would you say that about Will?
I'm confused. I'm sorry. I'm pointing out what a number of people on Twitter have pointed out. That is a fact. The guy asked, he wanted to be marketed a certain way. He was based on he wanted to push out his image. Okay. This is stuff that he's allowed to be put out there. I'm not his guardian in these cases. I'd love to be. But he said a lot of things that I think he should take back. That's all. Hey, welcome everybody. How you doing?
Yeah.
And so there you go. So ta-da.
Hey, it's cool.
No, but it encapsulates, and Bill knows what I'm talking about as much as he wants to avoid the fact. But it
I don't want to avoid anything. I just don't know what we're talking about anymore. So-
I do. I know exactly what we're talking about. We're talking about Will Levis before the draft. What was like
Right.
from
Sure.
a
Bill knows.
perspective.
Bill knows.
I mean, there was a lot of hype. Certainly, there was a lot of hype around him, and
There
he
was
has
a division too.
he has a high level of physical gifts. He has an extremely strong arm, and though he's not a freakishly athletic person, he's a really good functional athlete. He can move around the pocket. He can break tackles because he's got a strong body, like strong in the trunk, particularly like thick thighs, and a guy who's 234 pounds, not afraid of contact. Makes plays outside the front, the structure of the play, can make those second reaction plays. He also is a guy that drilled deep dropping linebackers in the chest with interceptions. And to his credit, he's clearly worked on some of those things. Also, they kept him out of some of those situations. Offensive line that has been, to be kind, inconsistent, played, I think, its best altogether game this season in this game. Despite the fact they lost their starting right tackle, they had to move some players around. Nicholas Petit-Frere kicked over to right tackle from left tackle. Andre Dillard kicked over and played a high level of left tackle. And but probably their best offensive lineman was young Peter Skoronski from Northwestern, who was a devastating blocker in the run game and held up in the pass game.
But Bill, I got to ask you,
Mhm.
was AP reflecting a fan base? Because he knows Will's dad. That was the other part of it. That
Okay.
all right, and you see, and that was the other part of it. There was a fervent drive to get this guy drafted.
Before Course Hero, I
to get this guy drafted, and a Twitter campaign, and that doesn't come by accident. And so my point is that how much of why he fell was due to this overhyping.
But it's
And
not
it
overhyping
was.
because
Go ahead.
scouts don't care about that stuff. Scouts don't care about that stuff. I mean, Timothy Dwight Tebow went 23rd pick overall, and he was maybe the most overhyped prospect of all time. So
Timothy
they don't care
Richard
about that
Tebow.
stuff. No, it's
Timothy
Dwight.
Richard Tebow.
No, his middle name is Dwight. But it doesn't matter.
Are we betting? Are we
but
betting?
the point,
Sports betting,
yes,
sports
I'll,
betting.
I'll bet $1,000. But here's the
Oh,
point.
it's on the line.
Um,
Are you
but
saying
here's
his
the-
middle name is what?
but-
This is it.
Dwight.
Richard.
Timothy Dwight Tebow.
Richard.
It's Dwight.
Richard. No, look right here.
Pretty certain. But
Okay.
but here's not even the point. I mean, that's not right. The point is that scouts don't care about that stuff. Scouts
Wait a
care
minute.
about tape.
Wait. Contest is on. We have to ask.
but scouts care about this tape. And Levis had very high highs, but also very low lows. And as I said,
you owe him. Wait a minute. Wait. Don't weasel. No weaseling out of it.
Not weaseling. No one's weaseling. No one weaseled.
Wait. No.
But do I get to finish my point? There were things on tape that scared you about Will Levis. There's no getting away from that. But they did a good job of minimizing his opportunities to make those kinds of throws to the middle where he had trouble as a
Sir Bill Carroll, you've just been knighted, but still.
Really? I was certain it was Dwight. Okay, well, I guess I was wrong.
Beat you to it, Bill. Boom. Shakalaka.
Cha-ching! Cha-ching! I didn't do that, Bill. Vinny didn't. I did that. I just
no, that's okay. I know. I was certain it was Dwight.
Well, we all make mistakes, Bill. Don't worry. I won't.
Hey, Vinny. Do you see how Bill tried to rush the clock?
I wasn't rushing anything. I just wanted to finish my point because
don't worry.
I've been getting cut off a lot today.
Oh, poor baby. We weren't cutting you off. We're gonna let you finish. You're the man. You're the knight. Well, my point is, you owe Vinny $1,000.
Not a problem.
It's a gentleman's bet. It's $1,000 worth of accolades. How's that?
Whatever form he wants to take it in, but
spread over a year.
To the credit, as I said, to the credit of of Tim Kelly, who is a rising offensive play caller, he did a very good job of, like I said, sort of hiding some of the weaknesses of Will Levis and building up his strengths, doing a great job of highlighting his strengths. And despite the fact that they clearly had worked on trying to stop the running game, in 22 carries, we still had 101 yards from Henry. So if you can't stop either, it's hard to win a game when you don't stop the run or the pass. Very difficult. So they weren't effective in stopping either one. So that was a really good play calling and play designing job by Tim Kelly.
Okay, so can he do it again? No, let me rephrase that. Will he do it again? And if not, why not? I have my own theories about that.
Well,
Vinny or Bill, but either one.
I think it's. I will admit I picked the Falcons to win this game. However, there's a few aspects of it. I was not prepared for Will Levis to ball out, and I don't think the Falcons defense was expecting that either. Right. That's my point. Also, DeAndre Hopkins, who for most of the season has been underutilized as mostly just a possession receiver, has definitely turned back the clock tonight when it comes to this. And also for the Falcons, they were expecting a team that was going to run the ball a lot more, and that's been the case for most of the season. I mean, Ryan Tannehill and Malik Willis has combined 2 touchdown passes this entire season. So I don't think anyone was expecting to watch a Titans game and expecting them to air out the pigskin, so to speak. But that's exactly what they did. And the Falcons were left off guard. I was left off guard. Everyone was left off guard unless you played for the Titans, and you get the W at the end of the game. And now the Falcons are a team that decided to change things at the passer.
Yep.
And now Desmond Ridder.
Yeah,
is that the case, guys? Is Ridder like toast now?
We saw Heineke play. I mean, they pulled it.
Yeah.
Heineke.
Yeah, they pulled him. He was benched in the middle of the game, and Heineke started.
So is that wait. The big question for Sir Bill of Carroll. I kind of like that, actually. Sir, I think I'm going to keep that in my Sir Bill.
That sounds pretty good, actually.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, question for Sir Bill of Carroll.
Yes. Right.
Is he a bust?
No. I mean, first of all, if you pull a quarterback this early on, it's a panic move, right? It shows you've panicked, and it wasn't like he was stinking it up. I think
he wasn't bad. I mean, he had worse performances this week.
I think he was 8 of 12 for 71 yards or something at the time they pulled him. So
he wasn't great, but wasn't bad.
Right, he wasn't. Right, so he wasn't bad. their offense lacked explosive plays. Bijan Robinson, who is the focus of their offense, and some of this has to be laid at the feet of Arthur Smith, quite frankly. They wanted to be a team that bullied you in the run game, and frankly, doesn't have a really good plan B for when they aren't bullying you in the run game. So you just saw what Tim Kelly did, right? With a team, these teams were sort of mirror images to some extent. One a better, clearer, cleaner.
If it's not there, live to fight on the next one.
Sorry, go ahead.
One was one had a mirror that was clearer and cleaner, obviously, than the other. But they really had teams that wanted to do some of the same things. We're going to dominate you in the line of scrimmage. We're going to run, and then hit you with some shots off play action. And you saw one team willing to change it up, right? Tim Kelly, they had a surprisingly wide open game plan, and you saw the Falcons not be able to make that change. And while Heineke also wasn't terrible, he didn't show me anything that made me think, oh, yeah, that guy's going to lead him to the promised land. So I think they've opened up a can of worms they will now have to eat. And there's nothing that I've seen. And once again, I've been watching Taylor Heineke, all throughout his collegiate career. Went to Old Dominion, which is, just a couple of miles from where I went to college. And he's a fairly high-level backup player. He's a 30-year-old, guy that you put in for a handful of games. And Heineke himself said, I don't think I've earned the starting job. I think this is Desmond's team. So the Ritter-led possessions were field goal, punt, lost fumble, punt, and then half. And then once they went to Heineke, it wasn't like, the skies parted and, we heard the strains of an angelic choir. They went back out there and went back to, punts, turnovers. I mean, it wasn't like you said, oh, yeah. Now it's all coming together. Now, admittedly, he hasn't gotten the starters reps. So if they decide to stick with him and he gets starters reps and we see, a revelation and he looks dramatically better, the offense looks dramatically better, whether Heineke does or not, that might justify this move. But nothing I have seen thus far. So they did get 2 field goals and a touchdown. But mostly it's the offensive line play and the fact that Heineke gets the ball out quickly. Desmond Ritter was getting absolutely, pulverized. And part of it's because he doesn't see things as quickly. He's, a younger player. So I can understand that part of it, saying this guy's, able to see things faster. The ball comes out quickly. But also, Heineke had way better starting field position. That's sort of the thing that people sort of forget in all of the story. Is the offensive line allowed, 5 sacks. They kept starting around the average about the 7-yard line, I believe, on most of their first half possessions, except one I think was somewhere was at the 10 or inside the 10, which is awful. They had a bunch of mishaps.
Taylor Heineke was 12 of 21 for 175 and 1 touchdown. Desmond Ritter was 8 of 12, better percentage, for 71, but no touchdown. If he had a touchdown, his QBR would have been roughly, actually slightly better than Taylor's but he was at 82.3. Now, Wood Levis was 19 of 29, 238, 4 touchdowns, QBR of 130.5. Derrick Henry was 22 from 101, as I believe you said already. But Bijan Robinson was 11 carries for 62 yards. And to me, I'm thinking, well, gee, if I had tacked on 10 more carries, hey, he's 5.6. He's averaging actually Bijan Robinson averaged a full yard better than Derrick Henry. So what's wrong with this picture?
Well, right. And that's the whole thing is this team is built to bully you in the run game. So do that. Like they weren't getting blown out, at least not, at half they weren't getting blown out. So you didn't have to abandon the run. There were some perplexing.
Bill,
that's the point I'm making. There was a perplexing play calling. I said Remember, I said most of this has to be laid at the feet of Arthur Smith, who is the play caller. He is the head coach and play caller, and there's a lot of debate about whether you should try to do both jobs. A few people can handle it and handle it at a high level, being Kyle Shanahan, but a lot of people struggle with it. We've seen a lot of coaches, even great coaches, struggle with doing both.
Bill did it well until it broke him emotionally.
So what I will say is if they decide to stick with Heineke and now he gets starters reps, if he lights it up, then the Ritter experiment may well be over at that point. But they'll still need to draft another quarterback because once again, Heineke is a 30-year-old who is, essentially a high-level backup. He's a bridge, and he'll be a bridge to someone else. But if indeed Desmond Ritter becomes available because of this, maybe you should get a call if you're the Vikings, because
everything comes back to Dave Rangoon, the Falcons offensive coordinator, because now
which is actually Ragone is the actual pronunciation. But yeah, Ragone.
Okay, I appreciate that. Yeah, Dave Rangoon. Ragoon or Ragone or
Ragone. Ragone is
Ragone. All right,
so
think of like ragu, the sauce, and you put an N at the end.
Ragone. So my point is that Mr. Ragone should be in trouble here. And as far as I'm concerned, he should be on the chopping block, because once opponents get a book on what the Falcons are going to do with Taylor Heineke at a certain plays, they're going to call defenses to snuff them out. And the Falcons have proven they do not have as expansive enough, and I say in italics, a repertoire of plays and approaches to eliminate that possibility. But what bothers me about Rangone is in his passing games, there's this annoying lack of precision. And it shows up where you have a quarterback throwing to a receiver who is maybe a hair late in being ready for it, which means the pattern is about a yard too deep. Okay. They need to go back and literally reset their entire passing game from a timing perspective before they move forward again. And with respect to blocking as well. And this has been a long-standing problem in his offense. He's done well enough to keep a job, Mr. Rangon, but not good enough to get the Falcons to a playoff.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Yeah. Well, the only reason why the Falcons would make the playoffs at this point is if they win that division. And right now, that division is very, very mid. It's mid. They're 4-4, and they're leading the miserable NFC South, the same division in which the Buccaneers won with an 8-9 record last year.
Yep.
And if they were to lose their game, game recently, they could have gone to the winner could have been 7-10 at some point. But also, if you're the Falcons, let's say their passing game gets way, way worse. Could there be a real situation that Arthur Smith does what his father would do and be like a FedEx box in which he is shipped out of Atlanta? Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, I had to put that pun in there. Get it, Zenny?
Oh, say that again. Say it very simply.
Arthur Smith's dad was the founder of FedEx. Right. And I think if it doesn't go so well there, I think the Falcons should also ship him off just like a FedEx box.
Oh.
Yeah, I got it's a good
one. I'll say one last thing. The Saints offense is starting to click also. I saw sharper, cleaner execution. I saw really good accuracy. I saw them not take as much time in getting the plays in. Like they looked like they'd finally worked some things out. And I think the return of Mike Thomas, and now he's starting to look a little bit like him. Maybe he's not dominant like the Mike Thomas who was, an all-pro, but he's looking now like a really good option in their passing game, particularly in that intermediate area where they had struggled. And once again, 2 or 3 beautiful deep shots to Rashid Shaheed, who had 3 receptions for 153 yards and really blew the top off of the defense a couple of times. So
yeah, we're talking about the Colts.
The Colts aren't a bad defense. They're not a great offense, but their defense is not the worst.
I wouldn't say their offense is bad. I mean, they're the only team that scored at least 20 points in all their games so far this year.
I guess that's true. Right, but their defense is not terrible. Their defense is middle of the road. It's not a terrible defense.
Their secondary has been getting rankled over the coals. That was before the Saints walked in the door. It's been a long-standing problem this season.
I would agree that they have had problems in their secondary.
I'm not going to hang the Saints' future on a win over the Colts.
Well, I didn't say anything about the Saints' future. I said they've looked the best they've looked. That's what I said. Who said anything about the future?
So I guess let's talk about the future because that's the next game.
Okay.
All right. So what does it look like? I mean, the Saints do have the 4th-ranked defense in the NFL. Granted.
Correct.
But my point, I'm talking about the fact that their offense has played against the 21st ranked defense of the Colts. All right. 21. And so you're not going to tell me
that, oh, because of that, they've gotten better when the next opponent now has a new series of data around which to prepare for the Saints that they didn't have before with this supposedly new approach, which basically is, okay, I got Derek Carr for passing. When I get inside the 20, I got Taysom Hill with a little bit of Alvin Kamara. And then I've got Rashid Shaheed for my deep shots. And, Chris who? And that's about it. I mean, that's,
Michael Thomas had a pretty good game as well.
Yeah, next thing. But I hold him out, and I didn't mention because to me he's a constant, right? So you got to prepare for him. That's part of what you're doing. If you don't, you're stupid. But my point is that the other parts that I mentioned are essentially new. They didn't use Taysom Hill on a consistent basis inside the 20s, which was the criticism. And they were involved with making him a quarterback, which, seems to have sailed to
finally,
some.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Finally, yeah.
And then they got out of that. They have Jameis Winston raiding the wings if Derek Carr screws up. But my point is that I'll just be absolutely candid about this. I have given up on the Saints doing anything well or not. And the reason is I do not like the racial politics that surrounds how they operate their football organization. It is reprehensible. It is awful. It is terrible. And it must end. It can't possibly work to produce a locker room that's going to play for you well on a consistent basis. You're going to get some luck here and there like Sunday, but it's not sustainable. And I've checked out. Not checked out from paying attention to them, but checked out of the idea of rooting for them as an organization. I'm very disappointed that the NFL would like to have or allow an organization that operates as they do under Dennis Allen to exist. So there you go.
Well,
had it with seeing it.
Be that as it may, they can still win an extremely winnable division. That's the only point I was making.
That's the only reason.
That doesn't. Hey, look, I'm not God. I can't if I were, I wouldn't do that anyway. The bottom line is, but the bottom line is that separating out what I just said about my feelings, okay, it's encapsulated in this just annoying inconsistency of approach that causes them to operate almost like the Falcons, but for a different set of reasons with their hair on fire every single week. This is not going to be the end of that. So because the minute this doesn't work, guess what? They're going to be stuck again because they have an offensive coordinator that doesn't understand how to design matchup offensive game plans. They don't fall in love with analytics. They don't have a standard system that, again, as my favorite football coach, not named Tom Landry, but Bill Walsh would say, allows them the comfort of making decisions within the hold of a ship. They act like they're on the deck of the ship. The wind is going everywhere, and oh my God, it's this, and you got this person complaining about this, and you guys playing games with other guys, and yada yada yada, and it's constant chaos. And it's after a while, it's like, give me a break. I don't like a coach that goes on the dais as Dennis Allen did and throws his star first-round draft pick previous year wide receiver under the bus for his new quarterback when he shouldn't even be in the middle of that at all. But that's precisely what Dennis Allen did to a Chris Olave who got a speeding ticket in Jefferson Parish, a parish that is known for racism by its police and law enforcement against its black residents. And they don't. And I wrote the NFL about this. I wrote 4 people at the NFL top about this.
Yeah, that definitely was a big question. Like, why? Like, Chris Olave said, "Listen, I'm with the Saints." And the guy there just didn't seem to care at all. Hey, listen, this is Chris Olave. This is someone who it did feel kind of suspect, honestly.
But what I didn't like, and I wrote to Luke Johnson about it, was one of the Saints reporters, white, who made, save for 2, who made this a funny thing about on Twitter. I said, there's nothing to joke about that he
That's
said,
not funny.
I'm a Saints player. He's a kid, okay? And the NFL is supposed to be watching out for kids, particularly black kids. Well, they want a George Floyd situation on their hands. I mean, this stuff is stupid. And
I
it's
was scared for moments
to consistently allow this crap to happen, especially black folks.
So I mean, it takes in an internet world where you got email and you figure out how to send an email to somebody that's reasonably written. You can complain about this stuff, but we just sort of sit on our hands and say, "Well, that's the way it is, and that's the way those folks are." Yeah, knock this crap off.
Yeah, that's just stupid.
Because the only way it's going to stop is when black people themselves, us, okay, decide that we are not going to tolerate it. Okay, that's what that happened to that kid. The NFL ought to be tolerating because that's one of his employees. Their employees, excuse me. But somebody's got to say enough of this crap. All right, I've had it.
Right.
And
well, Jefferson.
Hold on. The Saints shouldn't be allowing it. They should be vocal about it, and everybody should be vocal about it. Folks, you watching this, you read about Jefferson Parish.
Right, and that you are correct. Jefferson Parish has had a history that dates back several decades of there being a clear bias and, issues that, I mean, not to say that this isn't serious, but things far more serious than this, I'll say, are on the record in Jefferson Parish.
Yeah, but Bill, I have to ask you, how do we know, Vinny too, how do we know that wasn't a speed trap, right?
Good point. That I was scared for Chris Olave, honestly, because like the officer did look kind of like confrontational, like, oh my God, like this guy plays for your hometown team and speeding ticket, like what? Like it was even speeding? Like I was questioning that a lot. I was scared. I seriously was scared for the kid.
Yeah, and hey, out here in Georgia, they just give him a ticket. You don't hear about it on the news. You don't see law enforcement Athens for the college trying to make a kid look bad for having a speeding ticket on that kid's own. And yet we're talking about someone who arguably is in a similar position, but in a city, Kenner, in Jefferson Parish, and then Jefferson Parish has to take the outlandish time to try to tar and feather this kid saying, oh, he could have hurt somebody, he could have killed somebody. Well, you know what? That's true for every speeding ticket you give, but you don't make you don't make an example of them in the media because they did a 70 in an area that could very well be a speed zone, but we don't know because you don't tell us. This stuff is ridiculous.
Yeah, that sounds very, very suspect. And
as I wrote in my email to the league, I don't want to see another George Floyd. You understand it?
Right.
Another. Okay.
I mean, even more egregious is what happened to Sojourner Gibbs a few years ago. A woman who was a PhD candidate, right, who went to diabetic shock, tried to tell the police that arrived that she was a diabetic and that she was going into shock, and they instead decided that she was on drugs and started dragging her out of her vehicle and were restraining her with zip ties when paramedics arrived. Luckily, the paramedics did take her blood sugar, found she was 17 milligrams below a deciliter. 40 milligrams could be critical. So 17 is terrifyingly low. And one of the paramedics told her she could have died while deputies combed through her belongings in her SUV. She did eventually file a complaint.
I hope those cops were fired.
No. They were exonerated of all wrongdoing, in case you're wondering.
You gotta be kidding me.
I am looking up.
Ought to be down there investigating. I mean, if I were the NFL, I would have people down there investigating what really happened to Chris Olave, so that I could say to players, "Hey, look, you know what? Stay away from this area. NFL, don't do any business with them. Don't bring business to them because they have a race problem. The league has done it before. Arizona, MLK, remember that? Okay, It wouldn't be the first time. We have to crack down on this stuff before it becomes a problem. And the Saints, and for Dennis Allen to do what he did in that context, I lost a lot. I lost not all respect, but the majority of respect I had for him went like that. That was wrong.
Yeah, it's
and it was wrong for Derek Carter too, because Derek gets in there, becomes some monster, and does to his players what young Shadur Sanders will not even do to his players in Colorado, and he's getting the crap kicked out of him. You guys see that game?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I watched every single one of their games.
Yes. Named, but you didn't turn around and hear him yelling at his own players. You didn't turn around and see him trying to shoot his own troops. Jeez. So I'm supposed to root for the Saints in those circumstances?
I can't blame you. It is difficult, especially for that situation. Like when you see someone that's being taken advantage of or made an example out of by an organization that just sees you as player first, person second. You should not do that. Like, I understand, yes, they are your product. They're the reason why you make money, use jersey sales, ticket sales. But at the same time, you need to understand that in the same way that an owner is a person, the same way that an executive is a person, the same way that coaches are people, most importantly, players are people too. And not just any, these are the players that are taking and risking their lives in the line to win games and earn money for your organization. You have to treat them better. You have to.
Yep. Yeah, whatever Vinny said, he's absolutely right. You kind of lost him there. What do you think, Bill?
Well, Jefferson Parish has, like I say, a long and troubled racial history. 27% of the residents of Jefferson Parish are Black people, and 75% of the use of lethal level force, like shooting, has been against Black men in Jefferson Parish. So it tells you what the issues are there. And while the NFL is essentially a money-making organization, that is their first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and however many priorities you want to go down. It is the first 99 of their first 100 priorities is built around making money. And so if ever you're confused about anything that the NFL is or is not doing, the answer is usually money. Yep. Because you were wondering. So unless and until this becomes a monetary issue, I doubt the NFL will get involved.
But it could come, you know what? It could become that very quickly.
Sure. I mean, that's what it would take.
Definitely can.
And not only that, from a standpoint of how advertisers respond to their players, it's already a money issue because you have certain teams that won't invest, or certain advertisers that want to invest in certain teams because of certain players, then it's already a money issue. And then if you have a player like Jameis Winston that was the victim of a proven fraud by Erica Kisman, her husband Jamal Roberts, then it's even bigger. And so, at some point, the league has to really have to come to a Jesus decision regarding how it wants to handle this for this future. All right, so moving along, it is 8:48. What's the score of the game?
7-zip. Chargers are up.
All right. Gentlemen, you want to close this out so we can watch the game?
Yeah, I do want to mention one other thing for the NFL this week. I saw the Jets-Giants game that had a total of 23 punts, which was the most ever in a game since 2003.
Ooh.
It was 7-3 for the majority of the game. It was so ugly. You had Tyrod Taylor go down with cracked ribs. Tommy DeVito came in.
That's
and you
not
had
something anyone ever wants. Yeah.
The Jets also had 3 different centers because they all got injured.
Wait, Vinny, what was the quarterback's last name?
Tommy DeVito. From
Any relation?
Rutgers /
no,
Michigan
not
State.
that I know of. He's no
relation
relation to
to
Danny.
DeVito?
I was wondering that actually, but so far from my understanding, no, but he is from Jersey. He grew up rooting for the Giants. And it felt like everyone in this game was getting injured left and right. It was pouring torrentially. It almost seemed like the game was a complete mess. Graham Gano missed a field goal that would have put the game more out of reach for the Jets. And then the Jets came down, tied the game. Giants were awful in their drive, and the Jets came in, field goal, game over, Jets victory. And the Jets are now 4-3. I don't know how this team's able to do it. And as for the Giants, you have Daniel Jones, who's now out. Tyrod Taylor's going to be out now. You have Tommy DeVito.
Yeah. They've got to find – you can't do this. You've got to find another quarterback. And once again, time to work the phones.
They need a line. They need to fire their offensive lineman.
Well, that too, but
their line is so awful. Why they were going to have if Tommy DeVito would have gone hurt, they would have had Saquon Barkley be their quarterback. I'm not even joking.
Which might not be the worst thing in the world. They really have a problem. And I've watched a lot of Tommy DeVito, both his time at Syracuse and obviously his time in Illinois. Got to see him in person once in his time in Illinois. Yeah, in a game against Northwestern, I got to see him in person. He looks like what people think a quarterback should look like. You know, he's a tall, strong-armed guy. He's tallish, not tall, 6'1", so not that tall, but he's got a strong arm. He's a good athlete, ran 4.66 in the 40, but he doesn't see the field well. He's going to be a sack machine. He's going to make a lot of mistakes. And, I mean, unless they decide to essentially punt on the season, they're going to have to find another option at quarterback. So they're going to have to work the phones. They're going to have to see if they can bring someone back that maybe they had on the team in the past, or, you know, see if they can pry someone loose in somebody's practice squad or something. But you cannot start Tommy DeVito. That's a no-go.
No, he was absolutely – he only threw one complete pass this entire game. It's like looking at this right now for the Giants, and I'm saying that because that was the game I saw mostly. I was watching with my dad, who, shout out to him, seriously.
Yeah, how's your dad doing?
I want to say this to you guys because it's live. My dad had to go in because they cut off half his toe.
Oh, wow.
His second toe on this, it was already blistered and everything, and the nail and everything else was fused to the bone, and they had no choice but to cut off that bone.
Oh.
So now he has half a second toe.
Oh. Well, I will be praying that your father recovers completely as soon as possible.
Yeah, it's bad. But we watched the game together, and it was tough to see him because he had a lot of emotions. Like Gano looked bad. The play calling was really bad for the Giants, and just everyone was getting injured. And the more I look at it, I think, man, is MetLife Stadium cursed? Because you have, in my opinion, one of the ugliest stadiums in the NFL. It looks like a giant EC unit that is so boring gray. You have so many injuries that happen there. You had one of the worst blowouts in the Super Bowl happen there. Like I heard that before there was going to be they couldn't decide on one thing. The two teams should have had their own stadiums, but over here we've paid so much in tax revenue for MSG's renovation. The New Red Bull Stadium. New Nassau Coliseum, Barclays, and Belmont, and Prudential, MetLife. We paid a lot for stadiums, and yet it feels like they deserve their own stadiums. Oh, yeah, that's true, Melly.
Yeah, but you're right. It's sort of like the Tropicana field of the NFL. It's got lots of negatives and no positives. So yes, I'm with you on that. Hopefully, at some point, they build something with some personality. And I mean, how cool would it be if they could put it back actually in the city?
I hate saying that I hate the fact it's in Jersey.
So where were you going to put it, Bill?
Well, New York. That's one thing. I put it in New York, the state of New York.
Yeah.
Okay, so remember, Yankee Stadium is a new Yankee Stadium. The old Yankee Stadium was it a Park District area or something?
It was in a Park District, I think.
Right. I'm willing to bet that the right person talks to the right person about what could happen there. That space could be pretty easily converted into a football stadium. There's not a lot of wide open spaces in New York City, obviously, but Yankee Stadium, the new Yankee Stadium, opened up the area where the old Yankee Stadium was, obviously, where it could be developed. I'll leave it at that.
Saying that. I say that because when the matter of building the Dome Stadium that was in a kind of a square box to the west side came up, and that was Dan Doctorow's baby, they got in a fight with the land rights people. So in New York, because of the complicated lattice work of land ownerships, you really never know who's, ox you're gonna accidentally gored and say, "Oh, build it here." Build it here.
Yeah, it's.
I mean, there's a reason why these things don't happen.
Yeah, it's also why MetLife Stadium looks the way it is because Woody Johnson and John Mayer couldn't decide on what the design would look like, and you also have like New York rains a lot. I understand there's some that aren't big into, but I personally am someone that would prefer a retractable roof or a fixture stadium because can you imagine how much more events you could have over there? Because MetLife Stadium, again, it's in the New York metro area. It's in North Jersey. You have a lot of people that can go there. Also from like the northeast part of Pennsylvania or even like upstate New York, they all come there to watch, a big, concert or a monster truck event or like a stage show. You could have it for so many events, but it's a shame that they don't use it like that. And they could have Final Four. Can you imagine if they had Final Fours in the New York area? Oh my God.
I'm going to guess that was a cost reason. I'll do some research and find out.
It probably was, but Dallas gets this beautiful stadium. Los Angeles.
The original Jet Stadium on the west side was domed.
Yeah, it was. It was going to be a dome stadium.
Right next to Javits. Actually, just down the block.
It was going to be right not too far from Javits, yeah.
And so I was a big proponent of that. It was also going to be part of the X plan that the New York Olympics had created under the same Dan Doctoroff.
Yeah, they could have done that, but instead now we have this.
Maybe we ought to get Dan Doctoroff on the show.
Yeah, that would be nice. Like just
still available. My God, I hope he's still alive. Sometimes you talk about these folks and you realize, but let's find out real quick.
New York itself is a situation which. It was a complete botched effort. They paid way too much money for something that's got very outdated very fast. You could have used it for way more events, but instead you have this giant hunk of metal that's in the middle of the Meadowlands area.
I got some bad news about Dr. Doctoroff.
Well,
not quite what you think. He is alive, very much, but he also is living with terminal ALS.
Oh,
yes, and the New York Times just a month ago did an article about him that said, it said his mind is, how did it put it? His mind is there, but his body is fading. Is what it says as I read it here. His mind helped rebuild New York. His body is failing him.
That's sad.
Yeah, and so that's what's going on. And Bloomberg reports that he's living with this terminal diagnosis. And Bloomberg was asking him how he does it. That was September of last year. He has ALS. He's 66 or 65, 67 now. So he just
that old.
Had a great life, and he's very grateful. And I would love to see if I can get an interview with him. Worst he can say is no, right?
Yeah,
so that would be an honor. Yeah,
it's a shame for Dan. Whole life, basically in many ways gone. But let's appreciate the impact he had while he's still here. And if he ever decides to watch this, if he's able to, please, we're wishing you the best, Dan, and I'm also wishing my dad the best.
Right.
Yeah, best to your dad. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, my dad can still walk, but still, his balance going to be slightly different, and he's been having a lot of lower legs because of his diabetes also.
Right.
It's been getting progressively worse. But it's kind of got a dark situation with talking about New York stadiums, but I do wish the best, and I don't know what else to say.
Gentlemen, Bill, take us out.
Well, for those who are interested in the draft, I'm going to start my Scouts Notebook series up again on so you'll see my breakdowns and discussions of NFL prospects popping up on Zennie62 Media, and then my newest series is Scouting the Scouting, where I will take you inside some of the hows and whos and whys of why some teams are really good at scouting and maybe some aren't so good. So I'll start with some of my favorites. So I've started with the Eagles and some of their people who I think are future GMs. Howie Roseman is fantastic, and he's got a great group of young people working under him, but smart teams should come snap some of them up. Then I'll hop over to the Chiefs, and I'll talk about some of their guys. And one of the most amazing things to me is how long the Chiefs have held on to some of their top front office people who I'm sure must get offers. But some of them I'm sure will say yes to the right team. So some of those guys will be leaving soon. And then I don't know who I'll do after that. Maybe the Bengals. The Bengals have, pound for pound, I guess you would say, the best scouting organization. They have the smallest scouting organization in the NFL, but they've been very effective and very solid in the work they've done the last several drafts. So I'll work through some of those and talk about their sort of modalities, personalities, and like I said, why they're good. And then I'll get to maybe later some of the ones that sort of struggle and maybe why they struggle as well.
All right. See you all tomorrow. And subscribe to Zennie62 YouTube if you haven't already. And bookmark ZennieReport.com. Actually, ZennieReport.com. And also bookmark Zennie62.com, which is also Zennie62blog.com, because that's also the place where you actually see their videos too, because every video they make on YouTube, or at least every one that is made when the system is properly activated, to be critical of myself, comes up on Zennie62.com, also comes up on OaklandNewsOnline.com, also comes up automatically on OaklandNewsNow.com, also comes up automatically on Zennie2005.blogspot.com, also comes up automatically on AtlantaFocus.blogspot.com. Well, you get the idea.
Yeah. Also,
it also comes up on our San Francisco blog on Blogger, and it comes up on our LA blog on Blogger, and well, you get the idea. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no problem. Also, rest in peace, Matthew Perry.
That's right. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
Very, very sad. And also, rest in peace, Adam Johnson.
Oh.
You know that story?
Oh, yeah.
Bill, you know the Adam Johnson situation?
I don't know maybe as many details. I had heard about his unfortunate passing. I don't know if maybe you know details I don't know.
Yeah, I know the details.
Like maybe you do.
There's a big reason why they're talking about his death. It's because he died on the ice. What happened was that he was playing in England, playing hockey in England, and one of his opponents tripped, and his skate came up, and it sliced his throat completely open. Wow. He bled to death. It's so I'm calling for everyone right here. I don't care if it's collegiate, high school, pros, international. Neck guards should be mandated, period. We cannot have another situation like this again. It should have happened back when Clint Malarchuk was playing. And I forget his name, who played for the Florida Panthers. Why don't we have this stuff in league? We got to protect people. Like your neck, your vital veins and your arteries.
Right.
Why isn't this protective? Everything else is, why is your neck not protected? It's so
excellent.
Foolish.
That's an excellent point. And I am a little surprised when I think about it. I've never even heard of a call for that. You're the first person I've ever heard, even because I have some friends who are like hockey heads, and they never seem to talk about the need for additional protection. The most I've heard some of my hockey head friends talk about is how the league is very much less than transparent about head injuries. CTE is not very well addressed or discussed in the NHL.
At least for football, they talk about. But
I gotta go and do something for Mom. But you guys can be talking if you want.
Yeah, at least when it comes to
thanks everybody. Okay, see you.
See you, Zennie.
Okay, see you.
At least when it comes to football, it's discussed a lot. But hockey, because it's not as big as football.
Right. And they force you to have
a lot of these players play a lot longer than for football,
right? And they force you in football to have that independent, neurological consultant who's not associated with either one of the teams. And unless I'm just missing something, hockey has nothing like that. So,
and you play way more games in hockey.
Yep. And
season, you're always hitting your head every time.
You have a stick.
It's why is this never addressed?
Right, you have a stick and a puck. And the puck can travel well over 100 miles an hour at times, and the stick, though it doesn't travel that quickly, even accidentally. I mean, I'm not talking about anybody intentionally doing something because they, obviously that's not legal to do, but you can accidentally run into the butt end of someone's stick fairly easily. And if that catches you at the point of the chin or side of the, right here,
like slice completely.
Well, not even the slice, but like the shock that passes through your brain. The thing that people don't realize is that a lot of head injuries don't come from your head slamming head on into something, though that does sometimes happen. It's very often when you fall, and what do you fall on when you fall in hockey? I mean, even with a helmet on, the helmet helps, but it doesn't stop your brain from rattling around inside your skull. And like I said, when you take, a butt end of a stick or even someone's shoulder at hot, because these guys are going 25, 26, 27, 28, 30, sometimes if you're on a breakaway, 30 miles an hour sometimes, but usually in the high 20s, mid to high 20s miles per hour. Even if somebody clips you, I'm not talking about slamming head on, but even clips you, think about what that does into your head snapping, right? So I'm with you on what you're saying. And I'll be honest, I've never heard anybody else mention
it should be like common. Like, why don't we have neck guards? Seriously, like all their necks are exposed. Their necks are exposed. I mean, and I saw that jersey. You would think he was wearing a red jersey. It was like soaked in like blood.
Yeah.
Like we should not. Everything is protected except the neck. Right. And I could understand that, maybe movements it can be restricted, but but is it really worth?
It doesn't have to be hard. It could be flexible. It could be made of a mesh or something like that. There's flexible, strong things that you could use where it wouldn't make it so you can't move your head. Obviously, in a sport like hockey, a very fast-moving sport like hockey, where you're on skates, you need to be able to turn very quickly and see what the heck's happening. Otherwise, you'll create more problems when you. So it doesn't have to be stiff or solid. It can be completely flexible and made of, like I said, there's I mean, think about what tires, right? We talk about the inside of a lot of these tires, which have these interwoven fabrics, or even in your bullet. People use are bulletproof. They're not bulletproof, but bullet resistant or ballistic vest. They're some of them, of course, have like ceramic plates, but the ones that you mostly see on the street being worn by police officers are flexible because they have Teflon. Teflon is flexible. It's not hard or rigid. There's a variety of things you could use. They could, start a contest for somebody that has the most, the best design, the one that allows the greatest freedom of movement, but the greatest protection, and give that person, a sizable monetary, payment, but also maybe they could have like a lifetime, where they're located, a lifetime pass to come to a game or whatever, figure something out, something cool. I'm sure there's a lot of hockey fans who also have like civil engineering or product design backgrounds. You might be able to come up with something.
Oh, yeah, there's I could show you right now. Like I could even show you some great neck guards. I can show right here. Share screen. I'm just pulling it up. You can get neck guards right here. I mean, look right here. Look at these neck guards. Look, cut resistance hockey neck guard by CCM.
What are the ones we're looking at made out of? What are the ones we're looking at made out of? Does it say what they're made of?
Usually it's let's see, it's usually made out of like polyester, like Teflon.
Okay, got it. Okay.
Polyester and foam for cut protection, soft liner protection from skin irritation. Okay. Arch safe design for a comfortable fit that it contours the neck. Like, why don't they have this? Like,
right. Agreed.
This feels like such an easy thing that they should do.
It feels like an easy fix. Yes, they should require some sort of neck protection, and it doesn't seem. And I don't think I can understand with some players. There are players who don't wear a cup. They should, and I know this from experience. There's people who go out there not wearing a cup. There's players who take some of their pads out and play without certain pads in football and other sports as well. I get why some people want to they feel like it makes them lighter or more flexible, whatever it is. But this is literally life and death. So
it's your neck. It's very, very sensitive. It's right by the femoral, the
carotid and the
carotid artery. and the jugular.
And the jugular, right?
Like it's serious. It's serious. Your neck, of course. Like, and also don't forget the back of your neck, brainstem.
Right.
That's another thing
Right.
too. Right. Your spine.
Well, I mean, everything in your neck is important. Like, there's no part of your neck you put. Oh, we don't need that. Everything that's in here should be protected. I'm with you on that.
The head protective, yeah, but a lot of people focus on this, but they have a helmet at least. They have nothing here.
Right. Agree.
Absolutely nothing.
Agree. Anything else you want to fire off before we close this one out?
Yeah, I was mentioning Matthew Perry before. I know it's not sports related, but I gotta say this.
He was a pretty good tennis player, apparently.
Yeah, I heard he was. He also apparently he beat up Justin Trudeau in school. His stepfather was Keith Morrison.
Right. That's true.
You're looking at someone who you could argue one of the most famous faces in television the last 30 years because of his role as Chandler Bing in Friends, which is one of the most iconic, popular, acclaimed TV shows ever created. He will always be remembered for that alone. So I made a vlog on this, and I've said it before. I'm going to say it again. This guy deserves to be in Canada's Walk of Fame immediately, no question. This guy deserves to be on that list, on that street in Toronto, along with these other people that grew up in the area and went on to achieve amazing things. I don't understand why he doesn't have one already, Matthew Perry. Have you heard about Canada's Walk of Fame?
I'm not super familiar with it. I know they have one, but I couldn't tell you who's on it or who isn't, and things like that.
Yeah, it's like a lot of Canadian, some that are successful in America too, but some of them you probably would not know, like Jelly Black and some like Canadian or Cardinal Official or like.
I'm familiar with Cardinal Official. Okay, now that's somebody I know.
So you know Cardinal, he was just inducted this year. Cardinal Official.
Okay. Yeah.
Let's see. Also, I'm looking at Canada's Walk of Fame right here.
But yeah, he was a top-ranked player. He was ranked nationally when he was living in Canada. When later he moved to the United States, and particularly in the Southern California area, he found that the talent pool was a little deeper than he was used to, and so he ended up, essentially moving away from tennis and focusing on, of course, what most people know him for, which is acting. But he was good friends with Jennifer Capriati. They played in exhibitions and mixed doubles matches. They were involved in fundraising for Big Brothers and Big Sisters, and even played against Rick Fox and Serena Williams one time in a celebrity pro-am mixed doubles.
Rick Fox, another guy from Canada too.
Yes, exactly, of course.
Yeah, this is just the list of this year's inductees. We have Lee Aaron, April Wine, TN2 Cardinal, Chili Whack. Glass Tiger was inducted.
Very familiar with Chili Whack, yes. Gone, you've been gone so long. You've been gone so long. Yep.
Yeah. Degrassi, like he was inducted. Lighthouse, Loverboy, very well known. Max Webster, McDavid, who's still playing, which is kind of surprising that they inducted him, not Sidney Crosby. They got some judges here: Platinum Blonde, Prism, Parachute Club, some Trooper, Rough Trade. Got some bands here too. I said Cardinal Official. There's let's see, the previous years. Director X, James Temery, Tragically Hip, Just for Laugh. Yeah, I can definitely Matthew Perry deserves to definitely be one of these names. Yeah, I was saying also Lauren Duvernay Tardif, former chief.
Very familiar with, yes.
So Graham Greene, was nominated for an Oscar.
Yes, fantastic Iroquois actor and just an amazing person also.
Yeah. Bret Hart, Keanu Reeves, Damian Warner, Bruce, famous guitar player Bruce Cockburn.
Yes. If I had a rocket launcher. Yes, very familiar with him. Yes. I have at least one of his albums somewhere around here.
The only downside is his name is Cockburn.
I'm familiar with that as well. I'm sure he had quite the interesting time when he was in middle school. Yeah.
Yes.
Like something you should get looked at. Yes, we all know. Yeah.
Yeah. James Naismith, of course.
Right.
Will Arnett, Mark Messier, Mr. Dressup, who was essentially Fred Rogers' understudy, essentially.
Ah, okay.
He was basically their Mr. Rogers, essentially. But yeah, Matthew Perry deserves to be one of these people. He deserves to have a star on Canada's Walk of Fame. And the reason why I'm saying that and not the Hollywood Walk of Fame is because with the Hollywood Walk of Fame, you have to pay like $40,000 to get a star on that.
Right.
Whereas with this, hey, you could just send a nomination and we'll see what happens. Also, speaking of hockey, we've inducted a number of pioneers. Willie O'Ree's still with us.
Yes.
They got to do it immediately.
Agreed.
They have him in Canada Sports Hall of Fame. They have the Hockey Hall of Fame. Give him the Order of Canada. Just give him this as well. He deserves it. Yeah, there's so many names, but yeah, Matthew Perry deserves to be one of them. I gotta say that because he recently died, and I think it only makes sense to have it here.
Yeah, it's something I think we'd all like to see.
Yeah, definitely. It would be something that would be really touching for his family. He never had a wife or kids, but he had many, many people that knew him and truly respected him.
Yes. A lot of fans in the Hollywood community, and of course drowning is thus far listed as the cause of death, but we don't have a toxicology report in. There were no drugs found at the scene, at least, but we'll see what ends up happening.
He had also a big hot tub too. For all the money he made, obviously.
Right.
But I just wonder if, could he have had a heart attack?
Once again, at this point, drowning is listed as cause of death. So we'll see if that changes. They're going to do an autopsy, obviously, and we'll find out more.
Are you surprised that the 6 actors from the show that he's the first to go?
Not at all. No.
It's because of his drug abuse and everything else.
He went through some really hard times, and so no, I'm not at all surprised. If it were Lisa Kudrow, I would have been surprised, or shocked maybe even, or if it had been really any of the women, I guess would have been a big surprise. And yeah, he's the one I actually would be least surprised. Actually, he's the one I was least surprised to hear about.
Yeah. His net worth is also the smallest too out of the 6.
Right. Well, he's unlike the others who have managed to find successful projects of some sort post Friends. His acting career practically ended when Friends ended. So
not necessarily. He was in the last movie he was in was 17 again with Zac Efron, but that was in 2009.
Right.
Yeah. That's some TV stuff. He had Mr. Sunshine that only lasted years in the remake of The Odd Couple.
Right.
Like a lot of spurts here and there, but nothing really sustainable.
That's what I meant. He has that's what I meant by successful projects. I mean, I should have been, maybe didn't hit the successful word hard enough. The others have found more post-Friends success than he has.
Matt LeBlanc's been starring in TV shows. David Schwimmer's been doing some stuff. Lisa Kudrow's been stuff. Obviously, Courtney Cox has been in. Definitely Jennifer Aniston has. Yes. But out of the 6, it feels weird to say he's the least successful because obviously he was successful.
They've all been successful, but post Friends, he's the one who's had the least success after Friends.
Yeah, spurts of success, but compared to the rest, he is the least successful. Yeah,
right.
But it is very sad, especially in this situation. I hope the people, if there's anyone that is watching this from there, please, I want to speak about this because this man does deserve this. I'd be happy if the Hollywood Walk of Fame do it too, but again, a lot of money. But if we could do his home country of Canada, granted, he was born in Massachusetts, but he grew up in Canada.
Right. Yeah.
He was a big ambassador for hockey too. He went to almost all the LA Kings games. He was basically their version of Spike Lee.
Right.
In a sense, like he went to all the Kings games.
Right.
So, hey, you have a celebrity there. He also represented the Ottawa Senators.
Yes.
He even wore that in the whole 9 yards. He wore the Senators logo. Good movie too. But yeah, the rest in peace, Matthew Perry.
Yes.
Also, rest in peace, Adam Johnson. Get neck guards, and I guess we'll see the rest of this Bears Chargers game, and
indeed,
we'll call tonight, I guess.
Yes,
always
indeed.
good having you on, Bill.
Yes,
Zenny, also always great having you on. Subscribe to Zennie62 Media and Bookmark Oakland News Now for more, as well as the many other websites and accounts we have.
Yep. And my thoughts and prayers to your
peace out.
Yep. My thoughts and prayers to your dad as well.
Yes, thanks.
Okay. Good night, everybody.